Hi everyone, I hope my screen is visible to all of you. Let me just do a quick check. So hi everyone and welcome to the first session of batch 2 of the blockchain ADDS course. Today what we are going to do is we are going to take a slight deep dive into the Ethereum blockchain. And of course, I'll explain to you why Ethereum is so important for us to actually begin with that. Now, I'm hoping all of you have already completed watching the first video that I asked you to do, which is called Blockchain Basics. Here, I've just put the timestamps about what all you would have learned in that video. So it would actually give you a conceptual overview of blockchains. And then we take a dive into some of the technologies that are core to the blockchain, which is hash functions, Merkle trees, proof of work. And then it's also covering certain Bitcoin basics, a little bit about mining, staking, paper wallets. So that's the reason I've said that that is the video you should watch before you come for this session. I'm presuming you all have done it. If not, then after this session, please watch that video also. And whatever queries you have while this live session is going on, you can just keep putting it there in the comments on YouTube Live, and someone will keep putting them on the chat here in Zoom. So I'll keep answering those. And if you are going to be watching the recorded version of this video, again, no problem. Please put your comments, your queries as comments below the video on YouTube, and I'll answer it then and there. So now let me just quickly change my screen. Okay. So now we are going to start off with the basics of Ethereum. And the first thing that I need all of you to understand, and I hope the screen is visible to all of you, is that Ethereum is not a blockchain, nor is it a cryptocurrency. It is actually a protocol, and that's a very important distinction for us to understand. Because later, as blockchain developers and blockchain architects, you would be faced with this question every time when you have a use case, which blockchain would make sense in this scenario? So at that time, we have to try to understand that this concept of blockchain can sometimes be a little complex. So for example, when you're using the internet, you always do HTTP or HTTPS. So what does that stand for? That stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or File Transfer Protocol, or when you're sending emails, we use SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So a protocol is a set of rules or a set of procedures, and most of the technologies in the world are going to run on protocols. So similarly, whenever we use the word Ethereum, we are talking about a protocol. Now, anybody in the world can download certain software and run that in their own blockchain. So today, when we talk about Ethereum, right? So there are many times when there are different blockchains that are actually running the Ethereum protocol. Now, let me quickly show you a mind map to explain what I mean by that. So in this mind map, if we can see, there are 5 major blockchains that run on the Ethereum protocol. So there are 4 of them, which is what we call as test nets. So they are for testing purposes. And one is called the mainnet, which is production. That means the actual real value transactions of all the Ethereum tokens, they run on the mainnet. Now, there's another slight distinction here. If you look at these 4 testnets, you realize all of them are not running proof of work. But we know that Ethereum uses proof of work, something we discussed in the earlier video. So there is one testnet, Ropsten, which runs on proof of work, and the others run on something else, which means all the Ethereum testnets also don't run on the same protocol. They are looking at different versions, maybe advanced features which have still not been considered stable enough. So that's where it gets a little complex. So what I need you to understand is, when the regular world talks about the word Ethereum, they are actually talking about this, the main net or the main network, where real value transactions of Ethereum are going to be taking place. Now, the native token on this entire Ethereum ecosystem that we could say is ETH, right? That stands for Ether, not Ethereum, Ether, ETH. Now, if you have ETH on one testnet or on the mainnet, it doesn't go to the other one. So these are running independently of each other. It's not like it's one hard disk and you can just share the same data on multiple folders. No, these are independent blockchains. So your assets or tokens, you cannot just transfer between them. That's another important distinction for us to understand. There's another very important thing, which is called the EVM, or the Ethereum Virtual Machine. And that is the biggest innovation which I would say the blockchain world has seen after the invention of Bitcoin. So as you can see here in this part, that there is something which we call as the Ethereum stack, right? And by the way, if you are having questions, please feel free to keep posting them. So what I want you to understand, when we talk about the stack, so we're talking about these layers, right? And we can see here, right at the base is something called Ethereum Virtual Machine. So what does that really mean? That's the main innovation, right? So when we talk about this virtual machine, sorry, just give me 1 second. Sorry. So when we are talking about this virtual machine, right, that is where the real core magic of Ethereum is taking place, right? So this EVM or Ethereum Virtual Machine, it acts as a single entity which is being maintained by a whole bunch of computers connected to each other, and that is what we mean by nodes. And these nodes are going to be running an Ethereum client, for example Get or Open Ethereum. These are some of the clients. So as you can see here, we're talking about client APIs also, and here is a bunch of the clients. So clients is the software that is going to be used, and these nodes are all going to be running this software, which enables these nodes to actually read the blocks or the smart contracts which are running. So what is EVM really? So EVM is the canonical or unique state of the Ethereum ecosystem, so to say. So every block, whatever is changing, so a new block is formed, a bunch of transactions are approved, that becomes the canonical state. And that's the most critical part of it. And that is where the core of EVM comes in, right? Because Ethereum has only one canonical unique state. And that's the EVM, and that is the core. And the whole purpose of the Ethereum protocol is to maintain EVM or the virtual machine. Are nodes on testnet incentivized for running consensus mechanism? That's a good question, Vikas. No, they're not. So what you do in the mainnet, yes, you get incentivized as miners, as we've covered in the earlier video, even on Bitcoin. But no, there is no such incentive for the testnets. Hope that answers your question. So this was kind of like the overview. So as we can see now in this mind map, so one is we have these multiple blockchains. We are really concerned only with mainnet. Secondly, we have this stack where we say first is the EVM layer, then we have smart contracts, then we have the nodes, which can be of various types, a full node, a light node, or an archive node. Then we have the client APIs. I'm going to go a little deeper into that very soon. And then we have the end user apps, which are usually called dApps, distributed apps. And that is what most people use when you actually access the blockchain. Kishore has a question. ERC20 and other versions, are they compatible? I am going to come to this very, very soon. So Kishore, just give me a few minutes to answer your question. Then we saw the client software. So the most common ones are Get and Open Ethereum, but there are a few others also. And Juhi, can you explain who are the clients in layman? So client is just a software, right? Client is not a person here. It's a software which is going to be used so that whatever data is in the node, how do you read it? That is going to be read through this software, which is called the client. Hope that answers your question, Juhi. Now, ETH2, which has been coming for a very long time, is talking about making Ethereum more scalable. See, right now Ethereum is very slow. So I think it's about 14 odd seconds. I forgot the exact number, but the number of transactions it handles are really slow. And I'm going to just go more into detail very soon. So how do we increase this scalability? And that is what ETH2 is supposed to do. Some parts of it have come and become live, and some part are going to take time. So Beacon Chain, which is one part of it, is live. And then we are expecting the mainnet and Beacon Chain to actually merge this year. And then there is going to be this concept of shard chains. I'm not going into the depth of that right now. It's a very preliminary lecture today. So we are hoping all this comes soon. And that is what is the vision of ETH2. And if that doesn't come in, that is obviously going to create trouble. And that is why a lot of people have started moving on to the other blockchain. So for example, in my case, I don't use Ethereum anymore because the transaction fee is really high and the speeds are low. So personally, I prefer using Binance or other blockchains. So we're hoping once ETH2 comes in, these speed and other issues could be resolved. You have a question here. Just read it out. Hold on. So Pratesh has asked if it is not a cryptocurrency. So when one invests in Ethereum, what makes no? So what I'm trying to say is ETH is the currency, right? I'm trying to tell you the difference in names. When you use the word Ethereum, it is the protocol. The cryptocurrency is called Ether or ETH. So that is a cryptocurrency, and we are going to look more into that. I hope that answers your question, Pratesh. Then another thing that I wanted to tell you about is there are various scaling solutions which are making Ethereum even today, making the network faster, because these may be running in parallel to the Ethereum blockchain. And that is something which Polygon has become very famous for. So we'll cover Polygon later. And here on this side, I made a list of the DeFi applications or protocols, the decentralized finance protocols, which are having a TVL or total value locked of over $1 billion. So that's just a list here. I'm going to go into this also a little more in detail in a few minutes. Let's take another question here. So basically Beacon 2 is mainnet for, well, it has to still merge. So mainnet is the blockchain and ETH2 would conceptually be the protocol. So that's why these terminologies sometimes get a little complicated. Now let's take one step a little deeper into Ethereum. So if we want to see what an Ethereum wallet looks like. So as you may have seen in the first video, a wallet is something where you are going to keep your private key, public key, and address. And now we are entering into the realm of the crypto. So when you buy ETH, what does that really mean? Right? Now, ETH is the crypto. Now, I don't usually like to use the word cryptocurrency because that gives a different connotation that people are using it to buy and sell things. So I always say crypto asset. And some cryptos like Bitcoin are currencies. Some like Ethereum are utility coins. So let's just use the word crypto asset. So when you buy ETH as a crypto asset, the first thing you're going to wonder is where is it going to be stored? So that is where this concept of addresses comes in. So just like when you have a bank account, you have an account number. Then similarly, now we'll just start using the word Ethereum blockchain, just to keep it simple. So on this Ethereum mainnet blockchain, there are going to be addresses. So let's say this is the address we have just generated. Anybody in the world can transfer tokens. So we will soon see that, okay, on Ethereum, it's not just ETH, there are other tokens. Whereas when we talk about Bitcoin, there's just one on that blockchain, which is BTC. But in Ethereum, there could be hundreds of thousands of tokens. All of them can be sent to this address. And this private key is what you would use to sign transactions to transfer those out of your address to someone else. And if somebody gets control of your private key, they can empty out all your assets. And if you send tokens to the wrong address, they could be lost forever. So that is the relevance of the private key and the address. Public key you can kind of ignore for now. Let me just see what other questions have come. Pranav is saying, are we going to learn how to set up a client? Yeah, we are going to go deeper. Yeah, smart contracts. Yeah, we're just coming. So once you've understood this concept, let's go into the next level. Now, how do we actually use Ethereum? Like, how easy or difficult is it for us to use it? Now, there are two things to consider here. It depends on what you are trying to do. So suppose in your application, you simply want to connect to the Ethereum mainnet and pull some data. Like, okay, what is the current block and what kind of data is going in, what transactions are happening. In that scenario, you would simply need to use an API service. So in the first video, we discussed a little bit about it. Later in this course, we'll go deeper. But this is one example of something called the Infura Ethereum API. So it's one of the most popular API services for Ethereum. And as a developer, it's the easiest for you to use an API. You don't really need to learn a programming language. Whatever programming language you are building your application in, you just need to call the API, send certain queries, and get the response, which you can then store within your database in your app. You can display it to whatever you want. So that's one example. But there are lots of other ways to do it. Now, suppose we want to actually get into this concept of writing a smart contract. So you'll wonder, like, what is the meaning of this? And why do we need to write smart contracts? So this is what happens is, when there is going to be some program which is going to auto execute when certain predefined conditions are met. So we call that a smart contract. And what makes Ethereum so powerful is its smart contracts. So let's take a simple example. Let's say there is an insurance company, and that insurance company gives you insurance. If your flight is delayed, say by 2 hours, it will give you some money. So what do? You will first buy the policy. Today it would be a manual process. Then if your flight is delayed, you would request for the payment to come to you. But if all this is automated in a smart contract, you could click a few buttons on your app, buy the insurance, and then if your flight is delayed, automatically the money would come to you, because there would be a smart contract running, which would constantly be checking which flight gets delayed, and then all the people who took insurance and who were on that flight, they would get paid. So that is where a smart contract really helps us. So I'll show you how to go into that also. Let me just check out these two questions first. So Shasta says that, how can somebody empty wallet using private key? So a wallet is just a place which contains your address and key, but your actual ETH is lying on the blockchain. If I have your private key, I can simply sign a transaction and move all the tokens from your address to my address, and all your tokens are now empty. That's how it works. Shasta, I hope that answered your question. Yagnadeep's question is, does ETH use SHA? Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it does. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it uses. So for those of you who've not seen the first video, SHA is one of the hash functions, and most of the blockchains today use SHA. It's a very popular hash function. Rainier, I hope I've got your name right. Your question is, are Bitcoin miners similar with the Ethereum miners? Yes. Yes, they are. So whenever we talk about a proof of work, blockchain miners basically end up doing the same kind of work. Now let's take a little look into the Ethereum Blockchain Explorer. So as we've already discussed in the previous video, an explorer, as you can see on your screen, is a user interface where all transactions of the blockchain are going to be visible to you in very great transparency. Not everywhere. An example would be a privacy chain like Monero. It will not show you so much of data and not in so much detail, because that's a privacy blockchain. So it'll actually hide transactions and addresses. But otherwise, most of the blockchains will show this to you. So here we can see which are the latest blocks which are being mined. So we can see these block numbers here. And then we can click and we can go deeper into a block. And then we can see, okay, you know what, this is the block height, which means the number of the block. So it keeps incrementing by 1. This is the timestamp when that block was mined or created. So we can see that here. We can see how many transactions are there. So we can see there are 373 transactions in that block. Who was it mined by? We can see the address of the miner. What block reward was paid? You know, all this information is visible to us in the Blockchain Explorer. And the blockchain explorer is actually using APIs. So someone made a front end, connects to the Ethereum blockchain through API, calls the data and shows it to you on the screen. Let me take some more questions. Vimal asks, how is smart contract? Okay, how is it smart that it can be run by simple software? So, the word smart contract is actually not the right word because they are neither smart nor they are contracts. But well, that's just the way it's called, right? But the difference here is that when you run it on a blockchain, then you cannot tamper with it. And that is the reason running a smart contract on a blockchain is so good. But running it in a non-blockchain environment doesn't give you so much of that value. But you could run smart contracts without a blockchain also. Rahul's question is, does Infura fall in the client API layer? Yes, it would fall into that. Now, let's look at some of the tokens. Now, this is the very core part. Some of you, I think, had a question earlier about a token. Yeah, so I think Kishore's question at that time, let me just pull up his question. So Kishore, you said ERC20 and then later versions, whether they are compatible. So first, let me explain what it means. So as of right now in Ethereum, the most popular token standards, because you can also go and create your own crypto asset on top of Ethereum. So it is going to follow a standard. So the 4 standards are what you can see on the screen right now. The first and the most popular is ERC20, right? So this is a standard interface for fungible tokens. What does fungible mean? If suppose, right now you look at your mobile wallet, normal bank account wallet, suppose it has 1,000 rupees or $20, whatever. Is there a difference between each of those rupees? No. My 100 rupees and your 100 rupees are the same because they are electronic money. So when all units of a token are identical, we say it is a fungible token. And if they are not the same, we say they are non-fungible. So a piece of art, each piece of art is different. So that becomes non-fungible. So ERC20, just give me a second. So ERC20 is for fungible and ERC721 is for non-fungible or NFTs, which has become quite a popular word today. Let me just take a couple of questions. Juhi asks, can you explain? I think client we've already explained. Sorry, I came back to that question by mistake. I have Manish's question. Just give me a second. So Manish asks, where does scan copies get stored? I didn't understand your question. Manish, could you maybe enter it again a little more in detail what you're trying to ask? What attachments? Oh, okay. So no, data doesn't really get stored here. So in the first video, I had shown you that a little bit of metadata gets stored where you can give some information about a transaction that gets stored on the blockchain, but actual files, they don't get stored on the blockchain. They can be stored off-chain. And one of the popular ways of doing that is using IPFS, interplanetary file system. Filecoin, Siacoin, these are some of the projects which do that, and we are going to come to them later. So at that time, we'll understand where the real data gets stored. Hope that answers your question, Manish. And by the way, if your question is not answered, please put it back again if I have not really understood what you were asking. There's another question, just give me a second. So Infinitium, I couldn't pronounce your name. What do you think if some transactions are used for nefarious plots like terrorism? Well, that's an excellent question. Now, in the real centralized world, anti-money laundering checks, CFT, which is countering the financing of terrorism, banks have to do these checks. There are softwares which help them. And even then, terrorists do manage to do such things. So similarly, when we talk about blockchains, yes, some kind of illegal transactions do happen, and in the blockchain world, they are a little more difficult to detect because there's no KYC in most blockchains, right? In fact, probably one of the only blockchains which gives you some level of control today is Algorand. And again, we'll talk about that in detail later. And the project that I'm working on, Hi-Fi blockchain, that from the beginning has full KYC AML so that such kind of terrorist things can be detected. But other than that, in most public blockchains, it's almost impossible to detect. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, I can see Juvi's question. ERC20 and 721 are fungible. Yeah, I'm coming to it. So now that we've understood 20 and 721, then there is something called 777, right? So this allows people to build extra functionality on top of their tokens. So if you want to do some kind of, say, let's say if you lose your private key, then something can be done to actually help you out in that case. So that requires more functionality. Then you wouldn't use 20 or 721, you'd use a 777. In fact, if you look at 1155, now that is kind of bundling, that instead of doing ERC20 or 721, it will give you the features of both. And so a utility coin like, say, a BAT, basic attention token, or an NFT like crypto kitties, both of them can be created using 1155. So these are options, and as a developer, you would take a call. Personally, I prefer 1155 because it gives you much more functionality. Another question, hold on. Yagnadeep, how off-chain data is brought to on-chain? Yagnadeep, this is something we will do in practical in, I think, next week or next to next week. At that time, I'll explain it in detail, because we'll actually be setting up our own blockchain nodes and then actually playing around with on-chain and off-chain data. So I would prefer to answer it at that stage. Kishore has asked, what if a token needs to be split further? So we need to do all this at the beginning, right? So when we are creating a token, there are certain things that we need to enter at that time, and we cannot change it. So how many units you're going to split in is something we do right in the beginning. Again, when we do practicals, it will become clearer. And I also wanted to show you, right? So let me show you what these smart contracts actually look like, right? Because most people think that it's like some kind of magic that you're talking about. It's not that complex. So for example, there is this very good platform called Openzeppelin, and I'll share the link with you below this video's comments. And it makes it very easy for anyone to create contracts. So for example, as you can see, ERC20 or 721 or 1155, you can just click. So let's say ERC20, you can give it a name. So suppose I'm giving it my name, and I can then give it a symbol. So as you can see, as I'm typing that, it is changing the code here. So it is actually generating the smart contract for creating a new ERC token right in front of us. And then later I can either copy this to my clipboard or open it in an IDE, from where I can publish it to the Ethereum blockchain and my token can actually go live. So now, depending upon what all we want to do, so suppose at the time of creating the token, we want to pre-mint certain numbers. So let's say I want to start with, say, 25,000. So you can notice as I'm typing, lines of code are getting generated. I don't know this language. I don't need to know Solidity. It's allowing me to do that. Now, do I want to make this token of mine mintable, which means certain accounts will be able to create more supply? All I need to do is click this. And as you can notice, as I am clicking, it is starting to add the code. And the benefit of using a platform like this, rather than trying to code on your own, is that they've taken and improved this code over time, and chances of a security vulnerability are lesser. So I recommend you use platforms like this. And one by one, as I keep ticking, you can see that the code is increasing. So it's just adding more and more codes, depending upon all the functions that I want. Now, the details of each of these functions we will do at a later session. But right now I'm trying to show you it's that easy. And the contract is getting created in front of our eyes. And this is a contract for creating an ERC20 token. And similarly, for other standards, I could use this platform to create my own smart contracts and my own tokens. Let me just take the next question. Okay, just give me a second. So Shankar's question is, can we add the KYC feature on an Ethereum chain? Well, it wouldn't really get added to the chain, but you could do KYC and then issue addresses on the blockchain, but the other millions of addresses on Ethereum, you don't know who they are. You could create some and say, okay, this is the KYC record for each, but the other addresses are not KYC, so it would kind of defeat the whole purpose, which is why you probably need a blockchain which supports KYC from day one, from the first address. Then you can be quite sure that all the addresses are KYC. Pratesh asks, will we cover topic how to become a miner and what? Yeah, sure, we'll do that. We can talk about that later. How to become a miner. Sesta says, is it possible to hold a broadcasted transaction? I didn't understand what you mean. Sesta, if you can clarify that question. Kishore asks, so if I'm building an Oracle on top of a smart contract, which, okay. For Oracle, you don't really need to use any of this. Oracle is a very interesting concept. Now that you've asked it, let me answer it here. So, we spoke about that example that we have the insurance company, and if your flight is delayed, they are paying you. So a question may come into your mind, how does Ethereum as a blockchain come to know that a flight is delayed? How is a blockchain going to connect to the airline authority? So a blockchain does it. What you use for this is something called an Oracle service. Let me just quickly show you one of the Oracle services. So Chainlink is one good example of that. Oracle is a service which brings data from the outside world to the blockchain. From the blockchain takes it to the outside world. So that's how we get off-chain data here. And Chainlink is a network of Oracle service providers. And an Oracle could be hardware or software. Oracle could be inbound, bringing data in, or outbound, taking it out. So in your question, if you are building an Oracle service, which means you want to supply data to the blockchain, then I would recommend use Chainlink. So you don't need to create your own ERC20 for that. You could become part of the Chainlink network of Oracles. Hope that answers your question. Infinitium has a question. As per you, KuCoin or Brave browser? So I'm a big fan of Brave browser. So without a doubt, I would recommend that. For those of you who don't know what Brave is, we'll do that later. It's a part of the project which is called the Basic Attention Token. Sumit has asked, please share more insights around hard forks and soft forks. Curious to know what happens to the chain. Yeah, sure. That's a really good question. And I was going to come to that. So when we look at the history of Ethereum, actually there are two Ethereums in the world. One is ETH, the famous one, and the other one is ETC, which is actually the original one, ETC, Ethereum Classic. And it's surprising that the original one token price is very cheap, but the new one is really expensive. I'll tell you what happened. So when Ethereum was very new, the world's first DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization, was created, where a bunch of people get together, pool some money, and then they vote how the money should be invested. Kind of like a mutual fund, but in a mutual fund, a third party is going to do it for you. Here you vote. But somebody found a bug in that smart contract. And they were able to steal, I think at that time, about $65 million worth of ETH. Or Ethereum, whatever, I think it was called ETH only at that time. And they were able to steal it. Now the community was trying to figure out, what do we do? Some people said, let us roll back the transactions so that those transactions which stole the money are cancelled. And some people said that is against the whole concept of a blockchain. It is supposed to be immutable. So how can we do this? So naturally, the community did not agree. And that is where a hard fork happened, where the Ethereum blockchain broke into two. One which continued with those 65 million gone, that's called Ethereum Classic, and one in which those transactions were rolled back, and that is what we call ETH. So that is the difference between these two. And that was a hard fork which resulted in the creation of two blockchains. It has happened in Bitcoin also, when a few years ago, 2017, 18, I'm not sure exactly when, many people wanted to bring in a better technology into Bitcoin called segregated witness technology to make it faster. Some people didn't agree. So the Bitcoin blockchain split into two. One which is continued to call Bitcoin today, BTC, and the other one is called Bitcoin Cash, BCH. And surprisingly, I mean, that's the reason you will see the same address works on Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, because they ultimately are forks of the same blockchain. So that is what a hard fork is. And a soft fork is when you are upgrading technology. So one by one nodes will upgrade to the latest version of the software, but even if they don't, it doesn't make much of a difference. That's why it's called a soft fork. Hard fork is what splits the blockchain into multiple new blockchains. Sumit, that was a good question, and I hope you've understood the answer. Harsh is asking, is it possible to build a utility token for someone who has no clue how coding works? Yes, of course it is possible. So first question you would need to actually decide is which platform do you want to build it on? So to take an example, if you wanted to do this on Solana, they've got a very beautiful online interface called Solminter, Solminter. Click a few buttons and you create a contract. You don't need to do anything. In others like Binance and Ethereum, you need to create that smart contract. But like I said, those are very easy to do using some of these systems. But if you're absolutely new, I would say Solana is the simplest way to do it. Harsh, I hope that answers your question. And yes, we will be covering Solana later. Shastya's question, if the transaction is broadcast but waiting for confirmation, let's say I send some ETH to another address, is it possible for me to now hold or stop? No, it's not possible. So once you have signed and it's gone, it's now in the memory pool. And that's where now the mining process is happening. So you won't be able to withdraw. Hope that answers your question, Shastya. So we saw the types of tokens, and then on the Ethereum side, you have a lot of details about each of these token standards. I'll share the links with you. And then we saw the Openzeppelin platform, which allows you to create smart contracts with so many features. It's a very, very nice and easy to use interface. So this was more or less about the technology of Ethereum. And now I'm going to jump into a little bit about the financial ecosystem. You know, when we use the word decentralized finance or DeFi, and most of it revolves around Ethereum. So I'm going to now go into a depth of how that works. But if you have questions on the tech part, just keep putting them. Now I'm opening up a site called DeFi Llama, which maintains a very nice interface about what all is happening in the world of decentralized finance. So when we look at it here, you'll notice that the top blockchain, when it comes to TVL, which is total value locked, right? So what does that mean? It means how much in terms of dollars, how much of assets are currently in DeFi protocols on a particular blockchain. And that is how we decide, you know, how popular the blockchain is or how important it is from a DeFi point of view. So now if we look at the top 5, so we can see Ethereum, Terra, Binance Smart Chain, Avalanche, Solana. And when we look at the TVL, we can see Ethereum is $138 billion. And the next one is just about 18, if I'm rounding it off. You can see the difference. From 140 almost, it drops to 18. So that is how popular Ethereum is. I mean, compared to the other blockchains, it's generations ahead in terms of DeFi volumes. And then we have Binance at 14 and Avalanche at 10 and Solana at about near 10. So this is a very important metric. How much value is locked into a blockchain? And that is why obviously Ethereum rules there, right? Let me just pick up a question. Give me 1 second. So Juhi has asked, what happens to the token, for example, ETH that existed prior to hard fork? Does it continue to exist? Yes, it continues. So let's take an example. When Bitcoin split, if you had 1 Bitcoin, you automatically got 1 BCH. So yes, it's like kind of a bonus, and now you have something on both chains, and yeah, you get double your money. But it doesn't happen that often, and it's not necessary that the fork chain token would also be very valuable. Although it is, I mean, Bitcoin Cash is a few $100s, which is much less than Bitcoin, which is like $50,000-$60,000. So, but yes, you get it on both. So whatever you have on one, you will now have on both the blockchain. Let me take another question. This is from Yagnadeep. Size of BCH block is 32 MB. You said blockchains are not full. No, well, even though it's 32 MB, that doesn't mean we files into it, because the 32 MB will support more transactions. After all, each transaction also has data. But if we try to put, let's say we were running a medical blockchain, and we suddenly want to put an X-ray into it, one single X-ray may be 30, 40 MB. So no, even though that size is more, you don't actually put large files into the blockchain. That is not a good practice at all. See the next question. Kshitij says, just curious to know, how do you see the future of crypto assets in India as government? Well, I disagree that the government is going to ban, like a lot of people say. No, I would say Indian government is actually very, very bullish on it. But we'll do this in another session on crypto, not on today. Today, I'd like to restrict it to Ethereum. UK asks, is it possible for transactions are not picked up? Of course, it is possible. So, when we talk about these blockchains, you pay a transaction fee, which is optional. So you could say, I don't want to pay. Now it is up to the miner. If there is a lot of transactions and they are paying good fees, it'll pick those. And then at a particular time, when there are few transactions, it will pick the free one. So if you're not ready to pay transaction fee, your transaction may take really long to go through. So it's your option whether you want to pay or not, but then it's also the miner's choice whether they pull your transaction or not. So we can see that this is how it works. Then we can see on Ethereum, there are protocols, and there are 411 different protocols running. So again, we can see a list of these. So we can see Curve is one of the biggest, which has about $20 billion of TVL. Then there is this Convex Finance, which has about 17. So like this, there are about 400, how much did we see? 411 different protocols of DeFi, which are running in the Ethereum ecosystem. And that's when you begin to realize that even though the Ethereum transaction fee or gas fee is high, it doesn't matter to many people, because when you're doing large transactions in millions of dollars, you don't care about $50, $60 transaction fee. And that is why Ethereum continues to be the most popular, because of the volume and types of DeFi protocols that are actually running on Ethereum. Hope that makes it clear for a lot of you guys. Then we can also see that now we've understood, okay, fine. In Ethereum, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is that to run Ethereum, we need ETH. And that becomes like the fuel of the Ethereum ecosystem. Just like in the real world, imagine if tomorrow there is no fuel, like no petrol, kerosene, diesel. Suddenly, ships won't work, aeroplanes won't work, trucks won't work. The whole economy would come to a standstill. So the decentralized finance economy, which runs on Ethereum, needs ETH. That's what is going to be used to pay all fees. And that's the reason ETH becomes important. Here they made a mistake by calling it Ethereum. The actual name is only Ether. The name of the crypto is Ether. So we'll look a little bit more into that after I answer this question. Joseph's question is, what is the protocol count on the DeFi Llama screen? So that is showing how many protocols are running on each of these blockchains. So on Ethereum, there are 411 different protocols. And when we click on it, we can see the names and we can see the TVLs, or how much value is locked into. Similarly, we can see on Terra, there are 17, Binance Smart Chain 291. So this is a good way for us to come to know which blockchain is actually being used. So a lot of people ask me, like when I came out with my list of top 10 favorite blockchains, a lot of people ask me, why is, say, Cardano not there on this, or so many other blockchains? Well, because one of my most important statistics I take is from here. And here I don't even see a Cardano, for example. So we need to see how much of real value is being locked into a particular blockchain. And that's when you begin to see, like a lot of people ask me, why Phantom? Well, Phantom has got about $8 billion of TVL in it. So that is why these statistics are also very, very important for us. Let me take another question. Kishore has asked, when we create an NFT or a non-fungible token on OpenSea, the art NFT is stored on their dashboard, but the MetaMask is required for signature confirm. So MetaMask is a wallet. Of course, we are going to cover wallets in detail later, where your private keys are stored. So when you're saying it is required for signature confirmation, what does it mean? that every time that you are approving a transaction on OpenSea, they have integrated with MetaMask, so you don't need to keep entering a password. It uses your MetaMask, which has your private key, to sign the transaction and to approve it. So in the blockchain world, you will see there are lots and lots of platforms. Like, let me just quickly open up one more since you've asked this question. So you may have heard about Uniswap, right? Now, when I look at that, it allows anyone in the world to create liquidity pools or swap between Ethereum tokens. Now, here on top, you see a button, which is now gone, but it asks you that connect your wallet. So now my MetaMask is already connected. So it shows me automatically my ETH balance here, which is on the testnet about 5.99. So now whenever I do any transactions, it can automatically sign it by giving me a pop-up using my private key, which is stored in the MetaMask wallet, and I can approve a transaction. So it makes it really easy. There is no need for a username password. So as you can see on Uniswap, it doesn't ask you to create an account. You don't need a username password, because whenever you're doing any transactions, it is going to connect to your MetaMask wallet and make your life much, much easier. Hope that answers your question. So here we can see that, my account is connected with MetaMask. It shows you my address also. Okay, let me go to the next question. Okay, I have a bunch of questions here, so let me try to take all of them. So anyway, I hope you got the answer, Kishore. Yeah. Sairam has asked, can you touch upon crypto mining and cloud mining? I'll do that in another session, not planned for today, Kishore. Sairam. Shankar has asked, could you please share all the chains which support KYC? To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of anything other than my own project, which is called the Hybrid Finance blockchain. I'm not really aware of any other blockchain which supports KYC from the ground up. At least I'm not aware. I may be wrong. Amit has asked, what are the downsides of Ethereum? I would say the transaction or gas fee. That's really, really high. And that, I think, is one of the biggest disadvantages today. Second thing which I don't like about Ethereum so much is the fact that in the past, they have rolled back the blockchain, when the split happened. And I think that's a wrong thing, because blockchains are supposed to be immutable. Nobody actually should have the right to roll it back, because then that kind of defeats the whole purpose of using a public blockchain. So I would say these are the two problems. And another thing, of course, is as the ETH value is going up towards thousands and thousands of dollars, that just makes it more expensive for developers to use it. I would say these are the disadvantages. But of course, it's got huge advantages also. The ecosystem is so vibrant and so many solutions are there on it. I mean, it is by far the best platform, at least as of today. Priyank has asked why someone has to manually mine blocks with advanced technologies. Why can't we create a program? There is no manual here. It sounds like someone is manually mining, but no. If you look at the first video, I've explained how the calculations are done, and it is done automatically. So I've even shown you what a mining machine looks like. It does billions and trillions of transactions a second. No manual intervention is needed. So please check out that earlier video. You'll get a clearer answer to your question, Priyank. Shankar has asked, are you going to cover the basics of DeFi? Yeah, there's a whole video on it. I'll be sharing that with you after this session. So DeFi we've done in great detail. Aditya has asked, what does TVL of 137 billion in Ethereum really mean? What is the value comprised of, and how is it locked, and who validates? Okay. Those are good questions. So first of all, these values are of tokens. So let me just quickly jump back and show you. So let's say we see this is the list of tokens running on Ethereum. So Curve, CRV, right? So we can actually go into it. So let's just click it. Okay. And now we can see a lot of details about Curve, and because it runs on multiple blockchains. And another thing that we've got to realize is that Curve has an address here, because it is ultimately a smart contract running on Ethereum. So using the blockchain explorer, we can verify at any time what is the actual value which is locked into each of these protocols, and then we can just simply add them all up. That's how the whole thing works. So on the blockchain, almost everything is very easily verifiable. Infinitive has asked, which apps and security management does one need to take to go? Okay, I didn't understand your question, Infinitive. Could you put that, rephrase it, what exactly you mean? Kishore has asked, NFTs must hence be stored on another wallet or dashboard. So when you say stored, right, it depends on what you mean by that term. So if your NFT is related to, let's say, an image file or a word file, a video, for example, that is stored somewhere else off chain. Then there is the token which represents that NFT or that video. That token is stored in a wallet. So they're two different things. So I hope that answers your question about what is stored where. But don't worry, when we do practicals, a lot of this will become much easier to understand. Abhinash has asked, can we reverse crypto transaction as a well, so like I said, one way of doing it is when you fork or roll back, as Ethereum did at the time of the DAO attack. That is kind of the only way you can do it. Of course, in Algorand, they have a feature where you can freeze an asset if there is suspicion of a fraud, and then they can force that asset to be moved. And again, in my project, Hybrid Finance Blockchain, that feature is built in. It's not necessarily in all blockchains, but in some it is. Shasta has asked why people are investing in ape NFTs. I mean, not even art. Why would someone hold it? I can't answer this question. I also don't understand why people spend so much money on NFTs which don't really give you some kind of financial incentive. I don't know. Even I'm quite surprised by it. Now, when we talk about ETH from the financial point of view, one is, of course, we always know this is the price, right? But there are other features that we need to, or other statistics or metrics that are very important. Now, one is this, which is the supply, right? So whenever we talk about a crypto asset, there is a concept called circulating supply, which means how many units of that asset are available for common people to buy and sell. So here we can see that. So this is about 119 million. So what is the total number of ETH as of right now in the world available to buy and sell? About 119 million. And then there is total supply, where what is the total number issued minus how many have been burned. So now you'll wonder, why do people burn cryptos? So an example would be of Binance. When they started, their token is called BNB. They said we are issuing 200 million. Every 3 months, we will burn some till finally there are only 100 million left. So when you burn tokens, you are reducing the number of tokens and increasing the price. So that is what total supply means. And maximum supply means what is the maximum number of that token which can ever be issued. For Bitcoin, that number is 21 million. And in Ethereum, there is no number. That means an unlimited number of ETH can be created in the future. So different blockchains use different logic. So some use fixed max supply like Bitcoin. Some have unlimited or non-capped like ETH. The Benchu's question is, what is better than Ethereum? Well, it would depend upon what your use case is. So depending upon what you're trying to create. So if you are trying to create, or you are looking for a pure public blockchain, personally, I would say Binance Smart Chain. But if you want compliance and regulatory features and the legal part is more important, then I would say Algorand is the most popular today for that. And my project Hybrid Finance also comes into that. So this is a very difficult question to answer, Devarshi, about which is the best. It would depend upon your use case. But over this course, we are going to discuss lots of blockchains. So I think I personally track about 16 blockchains. Just show them to you. So usually, yeah. So these are the blockchains that I personally track. So as you can see, that's 17 of them. So for these 17, I can always answer questions. So maybe in the next session, what I'll do is I'll talk about all these and what are the special features of them and under what situation you should consider using which one. So I hope at that time your question will be answered better. Okay, just the next one. Okay, yeah, let me get another question here. So Infinitium has asked what security management apps one needs to install in the device for crypto. So usually you just need a wallet. So for example, you could just use, say, the Chrome browser, and in that you would have MetaMask installed as an extension. And then you would just make sure that the rest of your computer is secured. So you have a firewall in place, or you're making sure you are updating everything and not randomly clicking on links which could be phishing links. So the standard cyber security you need to do. From the blockchain point of view, you could consider using Brave. I think they now integrated a wallet also into that. Or you could, I personally think Chrome is a good idea as a browser, and you use MetaMask with that. You've asked a question about VPN and all that. No, not really necessary. Even Tor browser, not really necessary. It doesn't really add too much from a security point of view. Yagnadeep's question is, what is Get ETH clients? So, okay, you know what? I'll try to figure out a simpler way of explaining a client, right? And then I'll maybe post that. Shasta has asked, can common people mint ETH? Well, you can, but it's going to be very difficult. So when cryptos was really new, you could use a normal computer to mine even Bitcoin. But today, because of the competition, you need to have a lot of computational power and a lot of expenditure on electricity. So as a common person, you could be part of a pool. So, that's where this whole cloud mining comes in, where a small amount of money you can become part of a pool, and then mining is happening and you can get part of the rewards. So yeah, you can. But anyway, we are going to see that later in detail also. Ethereum having 411 protocols. So can we say that each protocol will have multiple applications running? Yes, sure, Vimal, we could say that. It depends on each protocol and what it does. And step by step, as you go deeper into DeFi, you will begin to realize that some of these are very complex in nature. So for example, we are going to talk about things like flash loans, where you are going to take a loan only for one transaction. I mean, in the real world, when we take a loan, it could be for days, months, or even years. But in blockchain, you can take a loan for a few seconds also. So that's another kind of DeFi protocol which is going to run, called flash loans. So yes, we can say each of them could have multiple. Abhishek has asked, if max supply is say 100 million, can this be increased to 200 million later? No. So like I said, there are certain things in the blockchain that you cannot change later. So some things like this cannot be changed. Like in Bitcoin today, you can't change that 21 million number. You'll have to fork it and make a new blockchain, and you could use the original source code of Bitcoin and make changes to it. Then you could give it a longer one. Not other. Shivang has said Tezos is Indian, right? Can you explain their working? To the best of my knowledge, I don't know if it is Indian. Actually, when it comes to blockchain, it doesn't matter which country, because nodes would be global, right? But I will be doing it in a later session. I'll be talking about all the 16 blockchains. Pratesh has asked, why does each blockchain have a crypto asset, like Ethereum having Ether and Binance? Well, that's a very good question. So the logic is, how do you build a revenue model? Because when we talk about public blockchains, right, we need to incentivize people. Please run my node. Please do my validation. Please do proof of work. So obviously the other person would say, why? What am I getting in return? And that is where the crypto layer becomes the incentive layer. That, okay, if you do this, you will get paid in my crypto, and as its value increases, you will make money. And that is why each and every blockchain in the public space or hybrid space will always have a crypto asset. But you can have a blockchain which is private also, where only a small group of people is using it. There you don't need a crypto asset, because you don't need to incentivize people. So if a bunch of banks comes together and makes their own private blockchains for transactions, they are making money in the real world from their clients, so they don't need to be incentivized using a crypto asset. Otherwise, in the public and hybrid space, you need crypto assets. Hope that answers your question, Pratesh. That was a good question. By the way, if I don't say yours was a good question, doesn't mean it was bad. It's just that that's the first time someone's ever asked me that question. Kishore says, when ETH is burnt each year, where do they go? Okay, that's a good one. So what happens is, in every blockchain, there is one address called the burn address. It has no known private key, which means any token sent to it is lost because nobody has the private key to move that asset. So in the blockchain world, you can't delete anything. It's immutable. But by sending it to the burn address, for all practical purposes, it is lost. And we'll see when we go into practicals that when you create a blockchain, automatically one burn address gets created. And that's what happens when you burn the token. Gunjan's question is, how is TVL calculated? So we would take the token value of all the protocols. What is the price of the protocol's token multiplied by the circulating supply? That gives us the market cap of each. Add them together and you get your TVL. Hope that answered your question. Rahul Chakraborty's question is, which crypto exchange wallet would you recommend? Gemini, FTX, KuCoin, or Binance? I wouldn't. I think it's not right for me to answer that question here because all of them are pretty good. They have their own pros and cons, tons and tons of them. But I don't want to publicly say this is better than the other. Gunjan Shukla's question, it is based on transaction value? No, it's actually based on the market cap. So when we go here, and we start to see, that is why you will see this ratio is also important. So let me just explain to you what market cap means. So we studied about the three kinds of supplies. Now, one important term becomes here, which is market capitalization. So as of right now, if somebody wanted to buy all the ETH which is available in the market, how much money would it cost them? How is it calculated? We take the circulating supply and we multiply it by the price, which is $3060 as of right now. And when we multiply, we get this answer, market capitalization. So 369, this should be $364 billion. So that's the overall market cap of Ethereum, or rather ETH. That if you want to buy out all the ETHs in the world, this is the money that it is going to cost you. And then of course, there are so many other formulae that come into the picture. So that is where we usually talk about crypto metrics. That's not usually something that I cover in the blockchain ADDS course, but I also do a crypto course. So if you guys attend that, I go deeper into each metric and how all these calculations are done. So I hope that answers your question, Gunjan. Juhi's question is spinning off from Pratesh's question. Why do we need so many blockchains? Other than crypto asset transfers, do all blockchains have real world? Excellent question. So let me ask you, how many companies are there in India who are listed on the stock exchange, right? I think in Bombay Stock Exchange, there are like 6,000-7,000. Now I could ask you the same question. Why do we need 6,000 companies? Why can't one company do everything? Why do we have one company which makes toothpaste, another which makes cars, another which makes software? Same logic here. Different blockchains do different things. And in the world of DeFi also, we have so many blockchains, but all of them are doing things differently. So some people prefer one blockchain over another. So for example, if Ethereum was the only blockchain and the transaction fee went up, what would you do? That is the reason we have Binance Smart Chain and others which are cheaper. So that's the reason. But it's a good question, like what are the real world applications that blockchains have? And that's when we realize, when we dive in deeper, many of them have different applications. So again, under the crypto section, we will go deeper into this because there are 11 different types of crypto assets. And accordingly, they run on different blockchains or different DAOs and other things. So it's a valid question. Sumit's question. Just give me a second. How do we get connected to your Hi-Fi project? Sure, that's a good question. So one is, of course, you could visit our website, hifiblockchain.com, and or sign up for our Telegram. That would be the best. Let me just quickly give that to you here. Just join our Telegram group, and every Friday at 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time, I do a session, a live session with everyone in the world who wants to know more about what we are doing in the Hi-Fi blockchain. So I've sent the Telegram link. All of you, please feel free to be a part of the Telegram group, and then I'll invite you for our Friday sessions. So this was kind of more or less what I had in mind for today. So to quickly summarize, we've kind of taken a dive into Ethereum today, and we discussed some of the standards. We talked about smart contracts. We talked about various platforms that we could use for this. This video will be available to you on the same YouTube playlist, and I will also put some links that, after listening to this video, what all you should be reading up on. And the next session that we are going to have, I'm going to cover the other blockchains. So I have a top 10 list of my own. I'll definitely go deeper into that. Ethereum deserves its own session, which is what we did today. For the other 9, we will do it in the next session. Now, if there are any questions you have, I can take them. Arjun's question is, can we create a new crypto while we are deploying dApp? Of course, yes, you can. You can create your own crypto. And that is something which we will look at a little deeper. In fact, we are going to do practical. So we're going to set up our own nodes. We are going to create our own tokens, fungible as well as non-fungible. Abhishek's question is, out of POW and POS, which one is foolproof? Okay. I'll be honest with you, nothing is foolproof. In 2010, when Bitcoin was very new, Bitcoin was also hacked. And I mean, the actual protocol was hacked. And somebody created billions of Bitcoins. And we know no one can create more than 21 million. But there was a bug that somebody exploited. But after that, I haven't heard of a Bitcoin protocol level hack here. So I come from the background of hacking and cybersecurity. So I can assure you of one thing. Nothing in the world is unhackable. Whatever technology we develop, a hacker can always break it sometime in the future. But if you're comparing, proof of work has been tested for many years now. Ever since Bitcoin went live in 2009 or 10, till today, so many people have tried to crack it. Ethereum runs on proof of work. So proof of work is the most tested. Proof of stake and these other are actually new ones. So over a period of time, we would really come to know how good or bad they are. Like one example could be taken of Solana. They've been hacked multiple times in the last few months. So that kind of makes us doubt their consensus mechanism also. So I'll be sharing a link with you. And today there are more than 80 consensus mechanisms. So you can read about them. And it's tough to say which is the best. Personally, I would always choose proof of work because that's the most tested. Shestia's question is, can you explain? Yeah, so proof of work is covered in full detail in the previous video called Blockchain Basics. It's a 1-hour detailed video primarily on proof of work. When will we have the next session? Same time, next Wednesday. So we will be doing our sessions same day, same time. So every Wednesday for 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time. But please remember, I've set up the LinkedIn group for you guys to network, and I've set up a Telegram group where I'll be posting instructions. So please make sure you're part of both. And in the Telegram group, I'll keep telling you about what we are going to do in the next session and what you should read before that. Yeah, I hope that answers all your questions. Is there anything anyone else has? Okay, so as of right now, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the session. And if you're watching the recording, please post your questions in the comments below. And I will see you next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Bye-bye.